Welcome everybody to We Need to Talk, an interview series dedicated to uncovering how to reduce suffering in life and how to find meaning in life. This channel is really specifically focused on adolescents, on how to help adolescents find meaning and reduce suffering, and really trying to just discuss, speak about what's really going on in our lives, what the problems are specifically. So I want to structure these interviews, these discussions, with the first half being a problem analysis and the second half being a solution to the problem, discussing solutions. But today's first episode is just a pure problem analysis because it's a pretty damn big problem we need to discuss. I don't know how long this is going to be. It's probably going to take a bit, but let's first introduce ourselves. My name is Henry.
My name is
sort of
Niek.
The host of the channel, and this is Niek. Yeah, do you want to shortly say who you are?
Yes. So my name is Niek. I'm a Dutch student, 21 years old, and I studied for 4 years in Rotterdam, economics and business. And since 2 months now, I moved to Zurich to pursue an adventure as an exchange student. And I'm prolonging this, so I'm gonna be here for a year. And I mainly do business courses over here. And I'm on the adventure of indeed like seeking meaning together with Henry. So we're like fighting alongside each other from different geographical locations, but still side to side.
Yeah, exactly. My name's Henry. I just finished a master's degree in finance, and now I'm figuring out, sort of planning what to do as the next stage. I make daily YouTube videos on just ideas on how to reduce suffering and find meaning. Really, it's really superficial description, but there's a lot more to it. You can find my channel, small plug, under Spar Terence. That's SPARTERENCE. It's not a double R, it's one R, Terence. Okay, so in this episode we're really going to discuss what adolescents are doing suboptimally, which is creating unnecessary suffering and preventing them from finding fulfillment, meaning, whatever you want to call it, happiness. And we really want to stress the fact that we are not above this group we're talking about. We are not better than these other adolescents. We're simply describing what we have observed, and we are partially responsible or part of the problem, I guess, to a degree. So I just want to say that the goal of this channel, We Need to Talk, is to uncover how to reduce suffering, find meaning, and really asking the right questions, because before we can reduce suffering, we need to analyze what the problem is, what's preventing people from achieving meaning, let's say. And we need to talk about the problem before we can solve it. And all of suffering in life stems from problems. Hence, we need to discuss them. Hence, we need to talk about them before we can solve them. Okay, so I don't want the vibe of this to be negative and like really sort of grieving and sad, but because it might sound a bit like a rant, just ranting about how what kids aren't doing very well. Anyway, here's the intro music. Okay, that's enough. So we're just going to structure this randomly, going from problem to problem, discussing them, and in no particular order. So the first topic I want to discuss is overstimulation. So I think a lot of adolescents are overstimulated with information, whether it's through social media, consuming substances. They're sort of on this permanent stimulus high in some sense. So first of all, let's just do that. I mean, this is such a, I mean, it's obviously cliche. It's very basic. Social media. I think students are on social media for too long of periods, too frequently. So their brain is absorbing information continuously without letting them produce thoughts and feelings that stem from within them and actually listen to how they're feeling. They're sort of drugging themselves out, they're just numb. They don't feel what they feel, if that makes any sense.
I think you already hit like the deepest level of this topic. I think indeed what you mentioned, like it blocks you from authentic thoughts and creating authentic ideas because you're constantly overloaded. And I actually talked to someone today about this. It's really funny. I think this is like a common misconception where we like take a break from studying or from work. And what we do is we go and like watch like a mini episode of something on Netflix or whatever it is. And we think that is a break. But like, I don't want to get into the science, but your brain is still processing like a lot of like information in just bits per second. And there's like no way your brain actually gets to process what you learned or what you just did and gets like some time to reboot and like start fresh again. And I think this is more of the scientific approach to it, outside of the content itself, which usually is not very healthy, so to say, or like
Yeah.
inspiring.
Let's talk about that in a sec. I mean, it's a pretty big problem. So you're basically saying you're permanently consuming, the brain is essentially exhausted, and it can't, in order to internalize the information you're learning, let's say if you're studying, you need a break. I think that's what like sleep is for, something like that, or dreaming. But you don't give yourself the opportunity to do that. But how does that create suffering? It's very, I mean, in my eyes, it's quite simple. You're just exhausted. I'm personally quite sensitive. So if I'm on electronics for too much, I just get a straight up headache. It's like my body tells me, yo, calm down. And I'll have a headache for the day or the end of the day, because that's when I feel the consequence. And then the next day, if go back onto a laptop for like an hour, the headache comes back again really quickly. So I need to like take at least another half day off of just essentially no electronics to reboot. But I think I'm just like a special case for that. So yeah.
And you would say this isn't even like content specific. This is just
Exactly. That's just
because it's like there's multiple problems within this problem, right? It's not just how much is consumed, but also what is consumed, and like the addictive behaviors that fit into that. And yeah, I think it's very common for students to just like mindlessly spend time in like low quality instant pleasure.
yeah. And there, I mean, I don't know if we want to go into the dopamine loop kind of stuff, but I mean, I think I have a bullet point for that later. But let's go into the content itself. What I observe, I mean, I deleted Instagram for almost, I would say, 1.75 years, and then I got it back for a week, and I realized how toxic it is. Thank you. Because you're seeing this awesome, pristine content, and then you're on it for a bit, and then you turn it off, and you suddenly fall back into reality, this mundane, gray reality, and you kind of feel ashamed that you're living that. And you just feel, I mean, it's that basic comparison. You're comparing your life, but you're consuming this absurd standard. And then once you come back into real life, you're like, wait, what's going on? Like, why do I live this trashy life or this basic, boring life? And of course that makes you feel bad.
Yeah, but I think it goes like even further than the comparison. I think we've both experienced where you get so much like into this one influencer, one YouTuber, that you like truly feel like you're living the same experiences. I think that is what makes it so addictive. For me, like I really like the videos about cliff jumping, because I feel like, oh damn, like I'm doing that too. It's not at all. So I think there's two sides to that. Like one side is really comparing, but then the other side is like you don't have to do it by yourself anymore because you're living through the other people whom are doing it for you, which is like super enticing.
That's an excellent point. Basically, I'm pretty sure YouTube channels like David Dobrik, Casey Neistat, basically people who portray this like a continuous adventure, they're so successful because people live through them, and they have this deep instinctual urge to live that life, and they kind of like plug themselves in, and then like tap out, like sort of like zone
like
out to
Matrix.
live through it. And like mentally they experience it, but their full being doesn't. And the full being wants to experience it and tries to anticipate it. And it gets pretty upset if it doesn't get it. And then people feel this like deep dissatisfaction by not being to actually live it themselves.
Yeah. Dude, I'm gonna draw a weird analogy.
Go for it.
And we're gonna just do it in the session. Like, I think that is essentially also what happens like when you watch pornography.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you don't have the urge to like go out and meet women anymore because you feel like you have spread your genes if you also masturbate to it. But
Yeah.
perhaps this like adventure seeking is missing in people because they do it like on their laptops too. And I never thought about this yet because I think we've spoken about this where like in pornography, but not in this aspect, because it seems more innocent because it's like it's just a YouTube video. But at the same time, if you watch that like 2 hours a day, like every day, you don't really seek that discomfort out of the comfort zone and your own adventure because you feel like you live it.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting because on the one hand, your body is not is trying to tell you you're not living properly, but then you're already kind of fulfilling it. So the barrier to actually like saying, okay, hold on, this YouTube thing, this isn't good, I need to try it out myself. That barrier is really high because you're already kind of doing it. Like, do you know what I mean? You're already living it. It's not like you have to start from zero and go and find it. It's already there and you're already kind of getting it. So trying to like put that away is even harder because it's already there. Do you kind of get what I mean? So it's twice as I would say pernicious.
Yeah. And I think the bigger theme this all ties in is like the state of consuming versus creating. And I think we humans are inherently made to create things. Like, look at everything that is around us. We've created a shit ton of things. And then it's only actually been since like the past 50 or even like 20 years that people can passively consume all day long. Like, that has never existed in like the past million years. Like, never.
Yeah.
And it's like the brain just doesn't know what to do with that. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, we haven't evolved for thousands of years to suddenly within a few decades, like be essentially live in a completely transformed environment. Like the genome just doesn't know how to react and is very confused. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think I want to add like one last thing to this. I think people also think listening to music is innocent, but it's like the most sneaky way that blocks your thoughts as well. Like, people don't see it as a dangerous thing, but if you wear your headphones for like 6-7 hours a day, there's like so much distraction going on. You simply don't really think when you listen to music. So it's like one other aspect I like to add to the discussion. Like, it's not just YouTube videos or video games or whatever that kind of a consumption, but also music ties in with this.
I'm definitely guilty of that. I know in the summer vacation where I was really stressed out about what to do next year and in a pretty bad state, I'm pretty sure I had my headphones on for a good 5-6 hours during the day just to numb and like sedate my thoughts so I wouldn't have to think the painful thoughts or be stressed out. And I actually listen to music too much. And I think it is because I just want to drown out the thoughts in my head. And you're right, because music, you think, it's just music. It's not so stimulating. But I think that your hearing sense is one of the most fundamental of your senses. I don't know if that's correct or not, but let's say it doesn't just, let's say it controls a lot of your consciousness. If you're listening to something, like it really takes control of a lot of you. So it's a very strong sense, I would say. Yeah. Okay. So the next topic, I mean, let's quickly draw that in. So why does that create suffering and how does that prevent people from finding meaning? I would say people don't listen to how they're feeling, so they can't solve their symptoms of anxiety or depression or whatever it might be. And it prevents people from finding meaning, because you find meaning by living and going on adventures and actually doing things physically yourself. Whereas if you're living through these things, you're not doing it, you're not finding meaning, you're a puppet, you're kind of living through someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think last thing to add to that, it fosters escapism behavior, where you stay too much in the comfort zone. You don't dare to actually confront and face your own demons because you're constantly distracted, and it prevents you from like reaching clarity.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to do with it. I think the reason why so many people on such a grand scale listen, or let's say, tune out of life, is because it's just dopamine producing these activities. And that's I mean, I remember you told me about this, like the reptilian brain. I'm pretty sure it's like the hypothalamus. Not sure about that. It's such a fundamental motivator of humans. And if you can find a way to produce dopamine, you've got humans in, like you've captivated them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so the next topic I want to go on to, one that I find very important, is an absence of healthy role models. There's a lot of bad role models, I think, who are sort of in the mainstream sort of, I don't want to say media, but what young people consume. A lot of bad role models. And not even obviously bad role models. I'm talking about people like, who they promote some good things, but there's a lot that's not good also, like Gary V.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Okay, but I took some notes. So there's a lot of not just role models, but adults who seem to know very little about what's good in life. And that sounds really arrogant when I say it, because it's like, yeah, I know what's good, and because you don't know it, you're bad or whatever. But if you ask a lot of adults, they'll tell you good advice, but also misleading advice that seems good, but it's actually misleading, I think.
Can you give an example?
No. Okay, no, let me correct myself. There's more famous like role models who give suboptimal advice. Like,
I think it's it's a trend. Like most of the people I think we're like implicitly talking about sell a product or a service which is usually tied into with coaching or something. So they just sell whatever, or they produce whatever sells.
yeah. And then they sort of combine it with some sort of altruistic mindset, as if they're helping you.
Yeah.
And I do think a lot of them are. Like, I think Gary V, for those who don't know, he's like a motivational speaker, coach, kind of media entrepreneur. Yeah, he's an entrepreneur. He likes that. But I mean, I think he has genuine intentions, but he's just very clouded in I think he's quite insecure, actually. I think
what is also wrong with this is that the most extreme voices, they get like to the top in some way because it's very unique. And I think he is like very, very hard on like the hustle culture. He's like very keen on that. And I think it was like a new thing like some years ago, and he spoke like about it very positively and like very often and just promising. And I think like the loudest voice gets heard, and that's kind of what happened with that whole influencing guru industry back then.
Yeah, it's kind of like not just the loudest voice, but the most sort of blunt voice. So, because whichever voice was most boxing in, sort of judgmental, sort of reducing life to something really basic. Like, you know, I really despise this quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like, it's like, if you need more sleep, sleep faster. Mate, shut up. It's such an unsophisticated quote. I mean, yeah, you know, or I mean, you can tie this into, yeah, you can, when you're dead, you can sleep. If people say, if you want to say, yeah, I want to go to bed, dude, they're like, dude, you can sleep when you're dead. Like, yeah, mate, if I sleep less, I'm gonna die earlier. So it's just a bad advice. I think really bad advice. To sleep less, and Gary's guilty of saying that also, or not sleep less, but work more hours, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of these people miss any sort of balance.
Yeah.
They're like super successful in like one or two domains, but usually if you look like holistically, there must be like something off.
It's like Dan Pena.
Yeah.
Dan Pena looks like he's bottled up a lot of pain. He's got a lot of like skeletons in his closet, or darkness within him. He's such a because like wise people, when you see a wise person, they tend to be calm. They tend to be accepting, non-judgmental, because they understand how the complexity of reality and that you can't box it in. And as soon as you find somebody who's reducing things in reality to something very basic and they describe it as something really obvious and simple, that person does not understand what they're talking about. And that's what these motivational speakers are doing. And the reason they're successful is because they're reducing it to something so simple that it's easy for people to understand. They're like, of course, you know, all I got to do to be successful is just work hard. And it's easy for them to understand and grasp it. And that's why they love to hear it. They wouldn't like to hear, well, actually, you can work hard, but you got to work smart. But how do you work smart? Well, you can be well educated, but you're not going to work smart. But wait, what if you're surrounded by people who aren't motivated as motivated as you? And then you start bringing all these variables in that might determine whether you're successful or not. Nobody wants to hear that, because that just, you know, that's not necessarily motivating, but it's real and it's true in my eyes.
Yeah. And I think next to these motivational speakers, it should be talked about just straight up influencers. I think the one name we're definitely going to call out is Dan Bilzerian, since he has been caught lately as well.
Oh yeah.
They like all of them promote like a fake attainable lifestyle as well. And there's like so much disingenuousness and dishonesty and like no integrity found in these people. And people still look up to them, and they're so good at marketing and selling, but it's just like creating false hope and like fake dreams for people. And yeah, I don't see how these people can like spend their money honestly and like live forthrightly. Like I don't
know either. It's super interesting because not only is he deceiving himself, like Dan Bilzerian. For those who don't know, he's essentially the embodiment of a 14-year-old teenage boy's dream, sort of Playboy mansion, enormous house, guns, playing like making millions of poker, apparently.
Bullshit.
And, yeah. That's essentially what he promotes. But like, yeah, not only is he lying to himself, but he's actually deceiving a lot of people, and that has serious ethical consequences. That's not only is he like, if he didn't have Instagram and he would just sort of deceive himself, like lie to himself, it's not great, but okay. But actually broadcasting this lie to millions of people, that's dangerous. That's really dangerous. Yeah, not a fan of it.
Mm-hmm. And I think over this entire topic of like goal or guidance and role models, I think the biggest thing is missing is like the generation gap of wisdom. I think we've spoken a bit about it earlier. That like, I don't know about you, but I have like no people outside of my parents in my life that are 30 plus, let alone like 50 plus or 60 plus. Like the people who have like definitely more life experience, I mean, not all of them will be wiser, but on average, they should be. They have more life experience, and I think it's quite sad that a lot of knowledge just pretty much goes to waste because we just don't have these connections. And I think this can be way more valuable than indeed some motivational speaker or some guru you really like. It's just down to earth, real people, perhaps even your neighbors that are like 30 years ahead of you. Like super simple.
That's an excellent point. Thanks for bringing up. I mean, it's good you mentioned it because that's kind of one of the fundamental reasons I wanted to make this We Need to Talk series is like you said, because the dialogue between young people and old people, it's quite like an intuitive thing. You think, well, life is something that everybody lives. You might as well try and figure out how to do it well. But I mean, naturally, the longer you've lived, the more you've experienced, so the more knowledge you'd have. But nobody's asking these people. Young people aren't going, I think, at least it doesn't seem like it, going to these people and asking for knowledge. Of course, you have these motivational speakers who might kind of represent that, but that's not yeah. It's not it. It's not a substitute, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's true. I mean, apart from my parents, my grandparents, I mean, very little time I would spend with them. I like to ask advice from people, older people, but yeah, I think a lot of people would benefit from doing that more. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think on a societal level is being promoted or facilitated at all. Like the only resource that I know is like perhaps some podcasts of like 40 and 50-year-olds, and there's like some books like Tools of Titans, but that's not like average people. That's like highly successful people, which I mean it can be useful, but sometimes they're like so far ahead that you have no clue what happened in between their journey. So it's still like you just see the result and that's it, which isn't useful always.
Yeah. Agree. And also that's kind of like a one-sided thing. These old people, they're giving advice, but they're not necessarily answering the questions of the youth, because the youth they have specific problems and specific questions which wouldn't necessarily come to the mind of older people, especially now because our generation is very different to their generation or when they were our age. So yeah,
and like one last thing I want to ask to add is missing guidance from like faith or religion. I think that should be a podcast episode in itself, so
yes,
we're not gonna elaborate too much on that.
I actually made a bullet point on that.
Oh,
I mean, I do see serious value in spirituality. I'm just going to say it. I'm not a fan of the word because other people aren't a fan of it, so they box it in. But this understanding the non-physical side of human nature, which is definitely there. There's not a lot of older people who understand that on average, I would say, or who believe in it or sense it or utilize it for their own benefit. And the people that do utilize it, they're very niche. They look like they're monks, kind of, they look very different to normal people.
Outliers.
Out there, exactly, they're outliers. So the resonance is a lot lower. But when a young person watches them, they think, okay, this person is different than me. They live a very different life to me. Hence, their advice might not be perfect. Whereas people like Jordan Peterson, who have a spiritual flavor to them, they look like socially integrated human being, and therefore you think like, okay, and it actually encourages that then, because they see, well, this guy Jordan Peterson, he looks normal, and he's spiritual, and that means I can also do it then, because she's like me, so I can also do it, and that's missing, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think what you said, like first of all, the relatedness of those people is kind of missing, but then second of all is the way most people articulate it is just very incoherent and incomplete.
That's what I said before the podcast. I talked to a girl today and we kind of discussed the value of religion. And she's from like conservative part in Austria, and I'm from like farmers country in the Netherlands, which is also a bit conservative, I would say. And we both have like similar experience with Catholic Church, where you basically only get to learn about the dogmatic parts, all the like the instances that happen in Catholic Church, not the positive ones. And you just get such a bad rap about it that you instantly just box it in and like you think it's not worth looking into, which is so sad. Like I think JP says this too, like if something is more durable than stone, there must be something to it.
Right.
Speaking about the books and the knowledge and wisdom from Christianity and other religions, and it's just like thrown like just cast away like as if it's nothing.
That is, I think that's, I wanted to get to that later, but let's just throw it in now. We've talked about this before. You can describe these religious scriptures as a collation of human memory. They're sort of a summary of what humans have figured out over thousands and thousands and thousands of years, ancient stories. And they describe, as a kid, when you're 10, you've only existed for 10 years, so you can only know so much. A 90-year-old has existed for a lot longer, understands life a lot more. What we're doing is we're throwing away the 90-year-old for the 10-year-old and asking the 10-year-old for advice. That's kind of what's going on in society. People are out here behaving like they don't have to pay any consequences for their whack behavior. They think it doesn't matter how they behave. But these books store the wisdom of our ancestors. And it's not necessarily like they do get thrown out of the window, these books, as, outdated or too conservative or oppressive, but not actively thrown out. Like I can say, we talked about this only like for the last 6 months, I've really started to understand the concept of what God means, like what people like intend with the concept, what it means. But before that, the thing that was preventing me from actually looking into it was just ignorance. It was just, I didn't know there was anything there. I thought it was going to be a load of, I learned a new word, cockamamie theories. So just ridiculous, implausible theories. And yeah, that's it. And I think a lot of people, they don't genuinely hate religion. They just don't know any better. They don't understand that nobody's told them that, there might be something valuable in it.
I think you notice that very quickly also when you ask someone their opinion about religion. Usually they start rambling. Like they have no clue what they're talking about. And like, I can't judge them because I personally also don't know a lot yet, but at least I know that I don't know a lot. And I know that there's more to it, which I think that is like the start of your journey towards like, I don't want to say wisdom, but knowledge. And I think to add to that, yeah, I have a question. You said the 90-year-old versus the 10-year-old. What do you think like the 10-year-old then symbolizes right now?
The 10-year-old symbolizes the 10-year-old symbolizes self-help gurus who, now I need to be very careful what I say. The 10-year-old symbolizes basically theories on how to conduct yourself in life that are based on ideas that were created in the last few decades. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. Out of nothing. Like, I'm going to get some, is this too dangerous to say?
Add that spice.
Okay, I'm going to add the spice. Now, this is not necessarily my opinion, but I'm just going to throw it out there. So evolution is a very conservative process. So the human genome, I'm not an evolutionary biologist, so I might be wrong here. But I'm just going to try this out. So evolution is a conservative process. The genome adapts itself to the environment to survive, right? Now, it will only adapt itself if the environment, sticks around for a long time. Because what if, like, for 10 years the environment radically changes, but then it jumps back again? The genome's not going to change, right? It would need to change over a long period of time. So until now, the barriers to casual sex, no, up until the birth control pill, Niek, is this too dangerous to say? Should I go for
No,
it?
I don't think it's too dangerous, but I hope it's not too much off topic.
No. I'll put it. I'll tie it back in. Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna like if this is too dangerous. Okay, I'm not gonna go there yet. I'd rather formulate and articulate the argument properly. What I'm saying is,
Cliffhanger.
people are using advice on how to live life. That the advice so the advice is founded upon ideas that have been created in the last few decades. So, like, let's say the material wealth thing, on building material wealth. I'm pretty sure that's a construct that was sort of built across in the last, let's say, maybe, well, I don't know, but let's say in the last 100 years, maybe. So it's in the grand scheme of human evolution, it's a very young concept. Or like a societal wide goal of building material wealth. That's a relatively young concept. Now, I didn't have to tell you that money won't make you happy. Like, I hope you know that. And I think everybody knows that idea. But people still strive for it. And you'll find in these books, in these ancient scriptures, that they tell you that, I'm pretty sure, like, in the Bible, it's something like the love for money is the root of all evil. It's not money itself is the root of all evil, but the love for it. So striving for money for the sake of money isn't good in some way. Now, I mean, people don't necessarily behave like that nowadays. So then they're not grounding themselves in the advice of the 90-year-old. They're grounding themselves in the advice of the 10-year-olds and these self-help gurus who selling them get rich quick schemes,
Yeah.
They'll show you a backdoor on financial markets and then you'll get rich in no time, that sort of stuff.
I want to take your argument a bit further, perhaps controversial. I would actually compare the 10-year-olds to, like, not scientific revolution, but science of the past decades, where it almost has become faith or religion, or perhaps even dogma in itself, to believe in science for the sake of science. And I find it funny, like, I had this argument with some guy some weeks ago, and we were discussing, like, the importance and essence of religion versus science. And he said the main value of science is like the trial and error, the iteration of processes, and the getting to conclusions with, like, a larger N. And I think this is awesome. Like, I don't want to give myself like an ego boost, but I told him, like, dude, have you ever heard of archetypes? I think that's, like, essentially the same concept over thousands of years, where you extract the core essence of what works, what is, like, successful outcome, in, like, a non-scientific way. But I was like mind blown by the revelation that came to me. And now we're, like, trying to reinvent all these things with, like, scientific methods, even though the most, like, the moral values and how to manifest yourself has been written for, like, 5,000 years, and we just throw it
Nicely
away.
said. Yeah, nicely said. It's basically, we're trying to figure out stuff that's already been figured out.
Yes.
Kind of. Yeah, and it's funny because I talked about a guy with it yesterday. He said religion or science has become its own dogmatic belief system, because, let's say, if you try and convince or talk about God, and then the scientist comes along and says, yeah, but if you can't prove it, it's not there. The scientist shuts down anything that does not resonate or is not aligned, doesn't fit in the picture of the scientific landscape. And that's essentially a overtly rigid belief system. which is
Yeah.
dogmatic. It's basically shutting down something without an argument for it, kind of, or without a logical argument, kind of. I mean, there's logic there because you can't prove God's there, therefore it doesn't exist. Although you can't prove it with your instruments, doesn't mean it's not there. I mean, maybe if there's other instruments we need to try and sort of create first. But anyway, yeah. And I also want to talk about TikTok, because I mean, this is going to be a pretty long episode. Like, oh boy. I saw girls again. I saw like 10. I was walking down my street just like an hour ago, walking the dogs. I saw these girls again doing these dance routines that are, I mean, with these like sexual moves. I mean, like not all sexual, but like it's already kind of these sort of ass twisting and and they're like 10 years old or something, if even. I just think, oh, that's not good. That really isn't good. So TikTokers, rappers also, and this is a difficult topic for me because I like rap a lot, but I'm pretty sure rap is the biggest, most popular music genre nowadays. But rap is a catalyst for promoting self-indulgence, short-term pleasure, just like drugs, alcohol, girls, no responsibility, violence. I mean, the whole package, it's all in there.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's hella popular. So people like this stuff.
Dude, that ties into like the whole shadow archetype. We'll leave that for another discussion as well.
That's a whole new discussion. Okay. So,
man, we gotta like continue the whole discussion on like science versus religion another time as well. I think that's super interesting.
We'll make an episode on that for sure. So next one, let me see what's a good one. Okay, let's do. I mean, this kind of continues on this. So people have a general lack of knowledge on human nature and themselves. So the whole dopamine thing. I mean, there's like dopamine detoxes. They're pretty sort of they're growing in prevalence. I mean, people understand what dopamine is because it's slowly turning their lives into something unwanted. But I mean, let's talk about how nobody told us how bad pornography was.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big thing. That's one thing. I mean, you can't blame older people for not warning, because they just didn't understand the phenomena yet, because they probably didn't have the same access to high speed pornography as we do nowadays as kids, or Instagram or whatever. But nobody told us, man.
Nope.
That sounds pretty funny.
Yeah.
Nobody warned us.
Yeah.
How addictive, how psychologically ruining it is.
And I think we're still like partially lucky in the sense that I don't feel like it influenced my sexual life like directly, in the sense that how am I going to phrase this? I think there's a lot of guys that really think that is how sex is performed. I never fallen for that, but that's another major problem too, where like sexual intercourse gets violent from the start because boys think that's how it works. And if they're both young, girls probably don't know any other way either. So it's like accepted, which is not cool either. Like there's no love to be found in there at all. But I think I hope that's not a problem we have faced, but it is definitely prevalent.
Yeah. I don't know. There's one story of, guy who has sex with his girlfriend, but then doesn't finish and then goes and watches pornography to finish. I mean, then something's not good.
Dude, I think that was also Terry Crews. He also like Kanye West, like some pretty popular celebrity that was actually addicted and like told that story. It's like,
yeah, that could well be
impressive.
That's I mean, I want to make an episode dedicated to NoFap also. because that'll get us views, first of all, and it's a good discussion. Second is, I had lunch with a guy today, seeking discomfort. Probably one of the most powerful strategies in life that will just catapult you forwards. No one ever told me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to sound like, no one ever told me, no one ever prepared me, but man, just knowing about this stuff will change your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's insane. I to make it more relatable, to provide personal example. Solo traveling, that's like one of the ways to get out of the comfort zone. Man, you're gonna face yourself so like frequently that there's just no way you can escape from your own inadequacies, which is very useful. It's painful in the short term, but it pays off damn well. And I think the aspect that we most miss is an attitude of going out of the comfort zone together with people on an adventure. I think that is something we're all like, no one's telling that at all.
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked about this, but like that's archetypally correct. Going on adventures with other people. That's like the story of humanity, essentially. So getting out of your comfort zone. I think if you'd have to boil down the most powerful mindset for self-development, it's seek discomfort. It'll never fail you, never ever fail. I mean, unless you break under the discomfort, that's another thing though, but it probably won't. You're more resilient than you think. You're stronger than you think, for sure, on average.
I mean, we experienced this like last week, right? This was like, because getting off the comfort zone is like, it entices multiple aspects. Like socially, there's this concept of like social freedom, where you just go to people and like speak to them, like go out of comfort zone like that. There's like spiritual, there's like inward, where you face your own inadequacies, whatever. But there's also, I think, most obvious and common, like physical, which we, like Henry and me did last week. We went for a hike in Switzerland, and I thought like the day before we were contemplating like 18 or 20 or 25 kilometers, and we're both like from very flat countries too, so that was
35 kilometers, 11 hours.
Fuck yes. Yeah, that was epic.
It was intense. And I was very anxious about it. I thought it would be dangerous, honestly, to go that far, to aim. And this was a hike that you can't just sort of turn back and like, I'm going home now. This is a hike you need to pull through, because there's no exit. There's only one way forward, really. And it was intense. I still kind of feel my knees when I do sports, but definitely worth it. I definitely proven to myself that my mind inhibits me from taking on challenges and getting out of my comfort zone in general.
I think you hit the spot. Like, however or whatever comfort zone you leave, it's always psychologically. Like the comfort, like the physical thing, it's still like in your mind. It's always psychological. I think that's where you gain most, because you learn that you can do more than you think, which is just awesome. It's like, didn't know I could do this. What?
People could really do with that encouragement, or just knowing that they can do more than they think. I mean, you transform humanity if you would plant that idea into people more, not in a arrogant way to tell people that, oh, I'm better than I think I am, but just plant it in people with some skepticism. I mean, you need to balance it. You shouldn't be, hubristic or anything, but so that's definitely very potent. I mean, I feel I'm going to talk about it. So I'm in Frankfurt. I'm back at home now, moved in with my parents, and I'm applying for jobs, and I basically don't have a schedule. I mean, I have habits and I take care of myself. It's all good. But if I spend a day inside without really, I might take the dogs for a walk, but without getting out of my comfort zone, I feel bad. I have more negative emotions. Whereas if I do something out of my comfort zone, I feel awesome. I feel alive. I feel like I'm growing, and I experience joy. That's really it. But if you don't move forward, like standing still is moving backwards, basically. It's not, it's painful. Like your body will communicate to you, at least for me, I'm not sure about others, but you're not doing something right if you're standing still. Yeah.
I think that's it's a statement to be nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't want to confuse that with like standing still to reflect and appreciate the moment. Like that is very healthy, I think, and definitely necessary.
Yes, that's true. I mean, constant growth isn't good. You need to, like we
Yeah.
started off in the beginning, you need time to internalize what happened and psychologically really absorb all the lessons from the experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure true. But if you're at a point where you are like, your body will realize when it's used to its environment and it needs a new environment. It'll tell you that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just happen unconsciously. You can't control it. And I mean, if you go on like a 3-week intense hike and you're back for a day and you don't do anything that day, and then the second day you're not going to be like in a depression because you haven't done anything. No, it's like, I haven't really gone out of my comfort zone enough or radically enough, and I feel bad now when I'm not doing anything because I need that. I need a big push. My body's anticipating a big push. It needs that. And because I've done all the reflecting, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think to add, what really struck me, because to add a bit of context, I'm on exchange right now for the past 2 months, and I did a lot of travel with both family, friends, and by myself, and it's been very eye-opening. Like I can share way more, but I'm not going to. However, for exchange students, I noticed it's so funny to see how quickly people jump back into the comfort zone. Like they might hang out with different people for 2 weeks and like do a bit of cool things, but after that they all settle in their groups. They're gonna spend time at the same bars with the same people doing the same things they probably did at home, like clubbing, those kind of things. I was like so struck by them. Like, guys, you're going out for an adventure, and like within 2 weeks you have your routines. You know where you're gonna get coffee every day. You're gonna hang out on Thursday in this bar. Like what's up? Like it's so funny how even students whom I think are the most discomfort seeking group in demographics out there still fall in this trap so quickly. It's really confused.
I mean, you call it a trap. Like, I mean, it's basically a combat with yourself. You need to, but like I mean, it's also, you need routine and it's also healthy. So like one needs to find a balance, but
that's for sure. But I think like, I mean, if you're going on exchange, most people go in there with the mindset of going out of the comfort zone and like making adventure. I think that's what it might be an assumption. And therefore that was a bit like, I never saw myself as adventurous, but I noticed myself doing things of which I never thought I would do that. I'm like, okay, no one else is doing that. How come? Like, what triggers them to already settle? Like, but I find the dichotomy you mentioned also really interesting, because the past 4 years in Rotterdam, I noticed there's a lot of value in actually being settled and like having the sense of belonging, like being valued by your community is also like, it feels so good. So I get you need to balance for sure. So it's a more detailed discussion, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, agree. You need your tribe, but you'll differentiate yourself by getting out of your comfort zone. Essentially, I mean, everybody sticks to the tribe. Not everybody leaves it though. Kind of. Yeah. Anyway, the next one. So this was the topic of people don't understand their nature and how, you know, while seeking discomfort will make you grow and it'll bring you serious positive emotions. Like it'll make you feel hella good. Despite the fear, afterwards you'll feel probably one of the best feelings ever. Now, another thing I want to talk about is instincts and archetypes. I mean, just like, I don't want to go into it too much, like too depth, but people, I don't know if I'm becoming too rigid in my idea of archetypes, evolution and instincts, because I might be, but people don't understand how fundamental their instincts are and how they actually do not have a choice whether they get to, let's say, follow the instinct or not. I mean, you can disregard the instinct, but you're going to pay a heavy price for it. And that, in that sense, you don't have a choice.
Can you make that more practical? Because I think a lot of people don't know what archetypes and instincts mean.
I'll just try and do my explanation of archetypes. So what I have understood, so humans have existed for a very long time, and the primary goal of the genome, the gene DNA, is to survive, right? So that's its like highest priority. So there are some behaviors in life that increase your survival rate and some that decrease it. And as time moves along, those people who behaved in ways that were destructive essentially did not reproduce and their genes died off. Sounds really politically incorrect, but yeah. And then those people who behaved well and survived, they propagated their genes. And as time moved along, the genome realized or internalized these behaviors that increased the survival rate in order to sort of build this autonomous sort of control panel that would make the human survive, increase the survival rate. And those are archetypes. They're basically instincts that increase the rate of well-being. So they increase your well-being rate, something like that, or survival rate if you follow them. So it's like, I mean, the basics is always like the hero archetype is like what we talked about, going out into the unknown, because what you do then is you leave your tribe, go out into the unknown, map out a new territory and conquer it. That means you have more resources then, you have a better understanding of reality, and you can predict your environment more. Hence, you can adapt yourself better to the environment and increase your survival rate. That's why the hero archetype is instinctually beneficial for humans. Do you understand, Niek?
Yes, I follow.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And the thing is that it's so ingrained into your DNA, like it's an unnegotiable instinct. It anticipates you to act out things, and if you don't act it out, it'll communicate to you, mate, you're doing something wrong. You're like, and it'll basically manifest negative emotions. And for me, it would be, I'm not getting out of my comfort zone enough. I'm not acting out that hero archetype. Hence, my body makes me feel negative and feel bad. It's basically trying to communicate to you to change something about your conduct, about your behavior. And then you do get out of your comfort zone and you feel great. And you're like, whoa, this was so awesome. I should do this more. That's an archetype trying to force you in a direction. And that's an unnegotiable thing. Like, I can't tell myself, stop producing these bad emotions, dude. Like, it's not cool. I can't, it doesn't work like that. Yeah. And I think people who don't, this is where it gets dangerous again. I honestly think on average, women who give up or don't act out the instinct of reproducing, I think their genome will rebel. That sounds too harsh, but it will produce some kind of suffering for a woman, I think. On average, I think it really will.
Yeah, I think in order to still be like fulfilled, they really have to double down on the hero archetype, which I think is like more prone to both genders. I think if you don't have both as a female, you're done. Like,
that's for sure. I mean, I was sort of assuming, I would be talking about women who might sacrifice children for a career. And your career might run along the narrative of a hero archetype, because you're discovering, you're helping the world. But I think a lot,
like, they are still less, they could be less fulfilled and happy on average than sacrificing the opposite, like vice versa.
I would just say it, their biology is primed to anticipate having children, and when that never comes, when that never happens, the biology is confused, and it's like, what are you doing? And people will think like this is sort of oppressive or sexist. No, I mean, again, I'm not an evolutionary biologist, but this is just biology. Biology is politically incorrect.
It's like apolitical.
Yeah, you can't really negotiate that. Yeah, so I would, yeah,
this is not opinions.
Exactly, it's not opinions, it's facts, bro.
Dude, it would be so cool to invite women and actually talk about this, though. Like, if you can get like honest answers about from females who have really pursued career instead of or next to or like only decided to raise kids, like, damn, like that would be really cool.
That would be awesome, but I can totally imagine those who went full, like, the full career, they're not going to admit that they made a mistake. Especially somebody who, like a person who really derives their self-identity and self-worth from their sort of their hierarchy in the corporation or their career. There's no way they're going to be like, this was actually a bad move, I regret it. No way. Unless they're, a very, very deeply secure or confident person. But yeah.
I mean, I think you could be able to poke through that. But
you could.
I don't know.
You could, but you'd get into dangerous territory where they'll get pretty, they won't like it.
I don't want to make the assumption that it is a mistake. Like, I really don't know enough to.
No. Like, we don't know if it was a mistake or not, but they might know.
Oh yeah.
They will know themselves if it was a mistake or not, but they won't admit it. That's what I mean.
If it was, okay.
Yeah, and this ties in to generally with adults. The reason why I think people might give suboptimal advice is because they aren't willing to admit that they took a wrong route, a wrong direction in life. Like, if you ask like somebody who's dedicated their whole life to just building financial wealth, I don't know if they would openly tell you, actually, I wish I would have invested more in my family. I wish I would have, especially not publicly. I think in a one-to-one conversation, I've had this before. I talked to somebody who said that, but they will not say it publicly unless they are very deeply secure, and most people are not that.
That is sad, though. That's like pretty sad. Misleading.
And that's also another point I wanted to get to later is people aren't strong enough, and I don't want to like put them down, but they're not strong enough to show vulnerability. And we've experienced this a lot, that there's a lack of that. And if you can't show vulnerability, you can't speak the truth also. And that's what we need. We need the truth on how to reduce suffering and how to find meaning. But if people are clouding advice and expectations with just ego protections, we've got a problem. That's not good. Anyway,
I want to tell like one last thing about the archetypes, and especially like the female archetype. I think we both see this in our mothers. They like sacrificed career to raise healthy, good children, and I like definitely see the amount of value and satisfaction they get from it. And like I always kind of found it, I think I've always been a bit denigrating towards it. It's like, I think my mom is pretty intelligent, so like she's not stupid. So I would always ask her like, why didn't you go to uni and like make a bit of a career? And I'm like, I've been like really judgmental about it until I indeed truly understand like how much just life satisfaction and enjoyment someone gets from raising 4 kids, which is a heck, like that's a tough ass job. And I think I only really was able to grasp it like a bit over a month ago, when I mean, we both set up Extraordinary Life Association last year, and I find it like insane to see the fact that there's a team going on right now of 7 students who voluntarily go into this struggle of continuing this for the sake of it, like because they truly believe in it.
Let's
And I'm
quickly
like,
explain what it is.
so last year we set up a study association called Extraordinary Life, and it's all around like going out of the comfort zone, self-development, seeking meaning, and like we host all kind of workshops and especially more facilitative talks where we just have like a thesis and then we like talk about it in like subgroups, and we really get to have like genuine human connection. And it's been like such a cool year last year to create that. And so it was a board, and we had the board of 6, 7. And this year there's a new board, as I said, and they started in like June or July. And they're like going ham at it. They have like so many new members. They're doing all kinds of workshops. They're definitely like navigating through a lot of chaos, also with decline by university for funding, COVID still going on, just a lot of like just barriers in the beginning. And to me, it's like super satisfying to see that there are students voluntarily caring about something we created last year. And I think you have that as a father or a mother, especially too, where you see your kids like confronting the chaos, and you can be like so internally proud because that is your kid, like that is who you created. And then like it just clicked. I was like, okay, like respect for my mom. I totally see why she does that. I was like,
Yeah, you hit the head on the nail. I think we generally, I mean, shortly, we don't see the value in motherhood.
mm-hmm.
It's devalued for sure, and that's not good. But yeah, I mean, I know my mom says the most joy, I think the most joy she's experienced was just raising us, and like you know, wrestling on the floor, just like she said, like we were a team as kids, like like me, my 2 sisters and her, we were like a team, you know. And that's beyond a career, man.
Yeah,
there's something about that is just so meaningful. I mean, deeply I mean, it'll just like grasp your whole existence. That kind of, that bond, that non-physical bond is totally underrated, I think. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that creation archetype, or that building something out of nothing, and then because it's not just we built an association, like an association, like I don't want to throw names, but that just, you know, they do something, but it's, you know, but Extraordinary Life, what we created, was there to help students find meaning in life. And like the most fundamental sort of drive that humans seek is to like find happiness, or whatever you would call it, you know, and to live a good life. And that's the utility in that is comparatively far greater than giving students CV advice, or giving students, you know, I mean, it's, you know, you need advice on your CV, you know, but I think, or career advice or something. Yeah.
or like hosting parties, or
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, organizing yeah, parties.
yeah.
Okay. Now I want to talk about this widespread nihilism amongst adolescents. And it's hard to, I mean, nihilism is sort of the belief that there's no meaning in anything, there's no point in life, it's just all a biological process, and we're here because of evolution. Now, I think a reason why people are nihilistic is because there's no active spirituality in society. There's no sort of, the narrative of the spirit isn't existence, because science has just sort of trod on it. And it's not necessarily that people speak out nihilism consciously, but it lurks everywhere in and so many conversations and interactions. Like when people get up in the morning, they think like, ugh, you know, what's the point? They don't think that, like, what's the point of life, you know, but they think like, ugh, I don't want to do this. Whereas if they had something to live for, some meaning in life, they'd get up and want to live. It's a simple manifestation like that. And I have, dude, I remembered sick examples of nihilism where we experienced it. So Niek and I gave workshops on how to find meaning in life. And we did group discussions, and there was one girl, I don't think you heard this, Niek, but this idea of, well, what does it matter how I behave in the grand scheme of things? What does it matter if I'm ethical or not in like the thousands of years of human existence? And they think like it doesn't matter, but that's incorrect. It does matter. That's an example of I think a lot of young people think like that. Like, who cares? You know, I can do what I want. It's like, you know. And then the other thing was we had an event on the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. And we had a group, do you remember? We had a group discussion, and then one girl said, well, I don't care how psychopaths behave.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
so,
whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, no. But this other dude. So this girl was like, we were talking about whether I forgot what it was.
I think it was like moral absolutism.
Yeah, whether there's like
something related,
like a fundamental objective moral truth. And she said, no, it doesn't matter. Like, you should let people do what they want. Like, if a psychopath wants to psychopath, whatever that, you know, go around doing his or her thing, you should let them. And then this other dude looked at her, and what was it? His mouth was like,
dude,
convulsing.
No, his
eye, he was like his eye was like convulsing, like he was like,
yeah,
and he was like trying to get the words, like,
dude,
he could not believe it.
His like conveying of feelings was like so like real,
so raw. Yeah, he really,
yeah.
he expressed it nicely. Yeah. But that's an example of, I mean, people think like that, you know, do what you want. It doesn't matter. And I think I probably also thought like that once, not anymore, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think, I don't know if this is like perfectly related to nihilism, but there's also the other notion, I think someone else made that in a session, of like, not nihilism, but just the idea of like doing things for the sake of things. And this was also in the meaning workshop, where someone said like, oh, we just grow today to like outperform our past generation without like any thought to it, which is like growth for the sake of growth. And we spoke about it a bit, like the economic growth. It's like a very Keynesian argument.
Yeah.
I don't know to what extent that is exactly nihilism, but there was like still something missing. Like there was no point to it. It was still like just for the sake of it. And I was like,
right. It's this idea that, well, I mean, the economic growth is one thing, but just the evolutionary, if we go back to that, it's like, well, the species wants to survive. So it'll get you to act out certain ways to survive. Okay, but what's in it for me? You know,
mm-hmm.
The species survives, but I don't care. You know, people don't see the value that they themselves can find in acting out these certain behaviors, these archetypal behaviors, for example. They don't see that. They don't see the meaning or the feeling of meaning. They don't, nobody ever tells them really about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they think, well, I'm just acting, or people want to tell me to act ethically in favor of the species, or in favor of economic growth. But what's in it for me?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think the argument sort of comes from. So that's one thing. Yeah.
I think we could do like a whole episode on like nihilism and seeking meaning.
Yeah.
I think that'd be nice.
Sure. Yeah, we could do that. I'm just trying to see what else we have.
Oh, I think also like the nihilism, it's like it's such an easy thing for people to say because like what you mentioned, like you do you, because basically it's such a loose statement in which you don't judge anyone actively. So it's like it's a nonsense statement and people can't necessarily, like if people aren't like really grounded, they can't attack you on it. But if someone like cuts through it like this guy did in the session, there's so much more in the statement. And I think it's like tied into political correctness without a political aspect, where people have this idea of, oh, I just don't want to say bad things because people might get hurt. I'm like scared to make statements that might be bold or like that actually have some spice or truth to it. And I find it so sad to see how people are just like frightened to make statements.
Yeah, people value their social status or the way people see them over what's actually good for people. So people would prefer, like, people are too, the fear of being judged or causing sort of an argument is greater than the fear of humanity declining or something like that. So yes, I mean, what you were indicating is that it's an easy way to avoid responsibility if you just say, yeah, like you do you, you know, it's your life, because that basically means you don't have to care about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you made a very cool statement just yet of the fear of being judged. I think to make like a full circle, a part of that definitely ties in with like the overstimulus of social media. Because if you're on social media, you're inherently by posting things being judged, like the amount of likes you get or comments, but also by like seeing others, you're kind of like judging yourself. And the whole idea of social media, it's so much centered around how I ideally should be perceived instead of like who I actually am. And people are indeed like are afraid to to actually find out who they even are, let alone like speak that into being to others, and not being afraid of the confrontation that is intertwined with that.
Yes, very, very, dude. Hell yeah, I think that's a serious case. I think people are so, like, you can tell a lot of people are not being themselves. A lot of people, like, I watched a video of also of a guy at Erasmus. They did an interview, and he was hosting it. He's a student, and I can just tell immediately this guy was trying to be very formal, sort of eloquent, and sort of, you know, professional. But I could just see, dude, you're as old as me. You probably, like, you're not like that, dude. I know you're not like that. I can see it. You're not like that. Why are you trying to be like that? And, you know, if you want to be professional, formal, I can show you to you later, Nick. It's like a guy who's interviewing other people in a studio, like in a professional studio, from Erasmus University, though. And people are afraid to just really be themselves. And I think it's a really good question. Why?
Dude, I think this ties in with persona. I think because we're like overstimulate, we have too much overstimulants. On all the platforms or like whatever there is overstimulate, there's always a persona portrayed instead of like the person behind it, like the actual authentic person, that we feel like this is how it should be, or this is how it is, like that there's no more to it. So it's just like,
Dude,
the majority of time is spent in that.
Dude, that's really good. Yeah, because the persona, so that your identity is broadcasted more, and people judge it more, like it's in the spotlight even more. And because you're judging it more, people are judging it more. You want to make sure it's good, and you maintain it basically, because it's on the spotlight, and you want to make sure it doesn't turn to a bad identity, or people judge you as bad. So they try to they become rigid. They invest more energy to withhold, like upholding it, or to maintain it, basically, because the fear of, or the seemingly the risk of losing it, or it being destroyed is just accentuated by social media, kind of.
Yeah,
I would say maybe that's some, but I think like that's one reason, but the like a deeper reason is just that people don't see the value in themselves, like the inherent value, I think. And that stems from nihilism also, just believing that humans aren't really that valuable. They don't take themselves seriously, I would say. Yeah.
Do you think that's like a confidence and like insecurity issue, or?
I think it has to do with, it comes from parenting. Part of it's for sure parenting, but it's also, no, it's like it's at a spiritual level. It's not a, build your confidence. It's a belief system question. It's a question of belief system that lies at the foundation of your being, really. I would say. I made a video on this. I forgot what I said.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
really like that.
People don't grasp the value, the immense potential that lies within humans, and therefore they don't see themselves that they are that. So they don't, I think.
Yeah. Dude, I gave a talk yesterday, like the Leadership Academy, like thanks to you, on on confidence and assertiveness.
Oh yeah.
Where I like try to grasp this idea indeed of inherent value, which I think I told you, like I talked about interconnectedness. And because everything in this age is so interconnected due to social media, but also just globalization in general, that if you really grasp how much impact you can have over time and to other people, for me it makes me like super like feel invigorated of like I don't even have to be like I don't have to be a social media influencer to influence like so many people in great positive impact. Like I don't have to be, and it just makes me like, it genuinely makes me smile. And so I do this like Leadership Academy. It's like a 6-week course for university students. And prior to the session of yesterday, I actually reached out to the students of the last workshop I did, which was in May and June. And I asked them like, can you give me something tangible you took away from the lesson? And 3 out of like 9 students that got back to me, they told me, yo, I'm actually in this board position in an association because I gained confidence in myself. And I just want to go out of the comfort zone and seek a leadership position. I was like so intensely satisfied with that, because thanks to the Leadership Academy I gave, they are going to impact like dozens of people again, whom are then also going to impact new people. I was like, that's fucking awesome. Like, that's such a cool ripple effect, and it just continues into like infinity. That's it.
Dude. Straight up, man, straight up. And that's when you grasp that, that you're influencing so many people continuously, you take yourself seriously. Like the fate of humanity lies in your hands, essentially. And when you know that, then you take yourself seriously, and I think you build more confidence, I would say. Not necessarily paranoia, like the world depends on you, but more that you have the opportunity to change the world.
Yeah, it's more of like a you can do this instead of like a duty of like, oh, it's all on you. Like, no, that's not the case.
Yeah.
But you have the potential. I think there's someone had a cool quote of like, humans are essentially walking abysses.
Yeah.
Love that. HTCT.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's explain the quote. People are walking abysses. So you see a human and you think it's just a human, but what they embody, what's inside of them, is just this gaping, gaping like just like void within them, which can be filled with potential. Like you can transform it into something like physically, like manifest itself. There's all this space within a human that could transform into actually something, but you need to take the initiative to manifest that. But it's within everybody, and an abyss, like when you look down, you can't see the bottom. It looks infinite. So maybe humans have like a divine potential within them that is infinite. Anyway, but one thing I wanted to say about just talk about how people are insecure. Like people are. Can we try and figure out? This is really important. Like, why aren't people? Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't think social media is the only thing why they're insecure. It's something else. Oh, people are doing stuff that makes them weak, I think. I think a lot of people are doing stuff that makes them weak. And then they kind of like, pardon?
Consciously?
Not necessarily. They're doing stuff that makes them weak, and that makes them ashamed to show themselves. I think, because, you know, you when you do, okay, let's give examples. Jerking off every single day.
Yep.
I mean, like, you don't feel good about yourself afterwards. You're not like,
no.
You know, like, you don't like high five, you know, it's like, what have I done? You know,
Personal clarity.
Exactly. And that's one thing. I think the casual sex thing is probably also up there. That makes you feel weak.
Getting very drunk is definitely one to do.
Wasting your life on social media, wasting your time, because, you know, once you come off it and you see 2 hours have gone of scrolling on videos, then you don't feel good about yourself.
It like physically hurts.
Yeah, you feel it in your body that that was bad.
That is interesting. Yeah.
And you do that almost every day. You have to imagine people do that.
Yep.
Of course you can't feel good about yourself. Because you're the only person who sees everything that you do, right? It's all in your mind. You know all the dark things you've thought, all the weird things you've done. Nobody else can see it, but you have that track record of yourself. And if you have a shady track record, of course you're not going to feel good about yourself. That seems quite obvious, I think.
Yeah.
So like what Jordan Peterson says, stop doing things that make you weak, really. I would say. Yeah.
Dude, I talked to someone who read a bit of research about it, and it turns out to be that people who are for like longer periods of time in like bad circumstances, like chaos. So for example, like jobless or going through divorce, like those kind of like pretty tragic, like bad circumstances. Whenever they would get out of that circumstance, they create an event in their life that like gets them down to the same level because it's familiar to them. And I like, this is like actually documented, where people would, for example, like, I don't know, they get a job, they're doing fine, and they do something like really stupid, like rob a store or like whatever, and then they lose their job again and they're back at zero, and something in them triggers this to do like intentionally.
Self-sabotage.
Yeah.
That's a super interesting idea, because it's quite a common thing.
Yeah, because this is like extreme levels, but it happens to us perhaps as well. Like we might not even know about it.
Yeah, and like micro levels, I mean, for sure. Like with, I mean, I've thought about it for a while, that phenomena, like of why that happens, because it's so irrational. Like, why would you do it? But there's some drive within you. I don't know if it's a shadow projection or something like that, like shadow archetype projection, or if it's just this idea that you actually dislike yourself and you feel like you're not worth anything better. So you keep yourself, you feel like you don't deserve to be treated right. So you treat yourself bad. That's a really dark thought.
Yeah. But that definitely ties in with like inherent value.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch my own behavior more to see if that's the case. Like, that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, I think I used to probably self-sabotage more, less now, but I've definitely done it. in some sense. Yeah. But like, I think it's, I just had it. You self-sabotage because, what did you just say beforehand? Like it's, God, my short-term memory is great.
I mean, you were talking about how people do it because they don't think they don't deserve a situation like that. Before that, I just spoke a bit about the research.
Yeah. Oh God, I just had it.
I'm sorry.
Dude, don't worry.
I said I'm gonna watch my behavior to see if I show any of those symptoms.
Yeah, no, wasn't that. God, I get these blocks when I'm trying to. Oh yeah, if the human doesn't feel like it's valuable inherently, it's lost. Like it's when. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have that like spirit within you that's alive, I think humanity is like is doomed. Not doomed, but like messes when you relegate the spirit, when you devalue the spirit within humans, like you mess with that at your own peril, like really badly.
And I think one like super important remark to make is that being inherently valuable is not the same as being inherently good. Like that's not the same.
Yeah,
I think
no
people
way.
might confuse that people are inherently good. I don't believe that for a second. And then also, and this might sound really harsh, that people aren't inherently valued instead of valuable. Like I think I told you sometimes I read this quote of like a leadership book where someone said, I treat people according to their potential instead of who they are at the moment. And that way, like if you see the potential in someone versus who they are at the moment, you treat them with way more optimism and opportunities. And it creates such like a learning attitude in the people itself, like a growth mindset, so to say, that they actually are way more likely to succeed in like fulfilling that potential. And I thought that was like so cool. It basically means if you have like that optimistic mindset of I am inherently valuable and others are too, that like opportunities will just naturally come to you that way.
Dude, yeah. That I think that boils it down nicely. It's, I mean, thinking is, okay, well, why would humans be valuable? It's because they have this immense potential within them that can manifest themselves. And I think people will say it's again quite politically incorrect that some people are more valuable than others. What they mean is people have manifested more of their potential than others. That's what they mean, I think. Everybody has that potential. It's not like you're less valuable. No, it's you're further in that journey of manifesting your potential. That makes you seemingly more valuable, but that's you're not acknowledging that the potential is still within the other person who seems less valuable. Yeah. That's a very, I think, a very healthy attitude to have, that treat people as their potential, not as who they are right now.
Yeah.
Treat them as who they could be tomorrow, not who they are today.
Cool. That could be right. Yeah, I think, dude, like in the next podcast, I really want to go into this notion of potential, and like, because there's a creative side, and according to archetypes, anything that has a creative side has a destructive side. And I think like I have the book about shadow archetypes, and I think that's a super cool topic to dive into in the next one, because I think it might be related with self-destruction as well.
Yeah.
But I would have to read more to really get like discussion going around that.
Dude, yeah. Oh, dude, I've got it. Yes, we're doing that discussion on the shadow archetype. The reason why people self-sabotage, or some people, is because they hate humanity. It's that what JP says, I think. It's because they just think life is so meaningless and sucks. Like, there's no point in acting. There's no point in acting nobly and in caring and taking responsibility. They just hate life altogether. They despise it. And dude, this is also super important. It's a lot easier to act destructively than it is nobly.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
is like, I mean, you can go and just like engage in a whole lot of casual sex. You, instead of building a relationship, you can just drink a lot of alcohol than try to like find joy in like going out and meeting people, getting out of your comfort zone, confronting your fears.
Yeah,
The destructive
yeah,
things are always the easier ones. And
yeah.
because it doesn't matter how you act, because you're a nihilist, you gravitate to the things that are easier because it's the same value as the noble behavior in your eyes.
Mm,
Do you get it?
yeah. Yeah, because like the creative behavior is always like over time, and it's like it requires a lot of effort. And you said indeed, if like nihilist, if like in 1,000 years nothing matters, then let's just destroy.
Yeah, like you're not going to put in the effort to
Yeah.
like, you're not going to take the difficult path, you know, the road less traveled. You're just going to, you know, dude, sick. I'm glad I that came to me suddenly.
Awesome.
I think we can slowly wrap it up.
We're like almost 2 hours in.
Yeah,
That was hella fun.
that was dope. Trying to see
Yeah,
if
I
there's
think
anything else.
we discussed a lot of what we written down.
Yeah. One thing we didn't do is being what you said, being caught up in daily life. People don't think about, you know, questioning what they're doing, whether it's even worth it. They just sort of stick in this routine.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're like not self-aware prior to that they get stuck in it, because there's always like a cause. And I believe the cause is like not being self-aware, not being aware of your surroundings and like your future. And therefore you get stuck in these situations where like a couple years in, you're like, what the heck just happened to these past years? Like, where did they go?
Yeah. But I think that I'm not sure, but it might actually happen that there are sort of moments where there's a thought that comes to your mind, like, wait, isn't this bad what I'm doing? Like, what am I doing? But you push it away. You like, it's like that game where you like slam the hammer on the
Like another
animal that pops up. You're like, no, and then people are like, oh my god, what happened? You know, after a few years, and then they because I think a lot of people might just not ever think about it, but it's hard for me to imagine that these thoughts never come up, you know? Like, I think there might be clues that that you know, there are moments where they might actually question it, but they don't follow up on that thought. They ignore it, kind of. I think it's human. It's in the biology to. I'm not sure, but I think it's in the biology. You have this conscience that is speaking to you, no matter what IQ you have or what like level of self-reflection. It's something is there because you're human.
Yeah, I think that ties in perfectly with what you said about like the non-physical side of humanity. But I do definitely believe that once you derail from that path of conscience, the voice, it diminishes over time.
Yeah.
You just silence it, and like it just kind of like disappears. Like it will always be there, but like such a small sound. And then like I think there is a point where you need like someone externally to just like put a mirror like right in your face, like what the fuck, like wake up.
Dude, yeah. It's funny you said that. I didn't come to my mind, but I read an excerpt on what Christianity sees as evil today in comparison to Buddhism, and it said something like, the thing with evil is the more you act out evil, the greater your distance to God. You basically you detach yourself further and further from a moral conscience, and that conscience in you, that the voice, like you said, it's drowned essentially.
Yes.
And it falls deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's into the abyss maybe, and you can't hear it eventually, and you need somebody else to sort of stick the hand in and like pull it back out again.
I think for those who like JP, his analysis of Pinocchio is like so on point in this case, where like JC the cricket, Jiminy Cricket, or Jesus Christ, like he like shows up throughout the movie, but Pinocchio, he keeps like ignoring him in the beginning. And I think like it takes him more effort to like get to Pinocchio, because he gets like distant, or like, I don't know the exact footage in the movie, but I know there's a point where they're like not even meeting each other anymore, and like something externally happens, and then like he's back again. That's like the perfect depiction of how this actually happens.
Yeah,
I think.
like there's Jiminy Cricket. He's sort of chasing after Pinocchio. Pinocchio is going to sort of Pleasure Island to, have fun, and then Jiminy Cricket's like running behind him, trying to like catch up to him, like tell him, like, warn him that he's being turned into a donkey, into a slave, kind of. But Pinocchio is not listening really until it's kind of too late, almost. Yeah. So yeah, I think we can wrap it up.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my.
Okay, so that was the first episode of We Need to Talk. We basically tried to do a bit of a problem analysis on what is creating suffering for adolescents and preventing them from finding any meaning in life nowadays. And we'll have a lot more episodes coming out. I'm not sure what frequency we'll be able to do them, but
Monthly. Yes, sir.
Okay, I was thinking more frequently than that, but okay.
Oh, really? Dude, like bi-weekly? Or like
yeah,
weekly?
something like that. I mean, I'll try and do them. I might do like a monologue weekly, unless I find somebody, but I'll just try and invite people on and just discuss. But yeah. So please subscribe to the channel. I think I might put this on Spotify YouTube and Spotify, but I'm not sure yet. So this is We Need to Talk. Thanks a lot, Niek, for being here today and giving some awesome ideas and being the sparring partner for this brainstorming session. Any last words?
Yeah, stay sane. Stay safe.
Stay sane, stay safe. Solid, okay. So thank you for listening. See ya.
Cheers.